Welcome everyone to our Digital Risk Summit 2022. Special welcome back to those who already joined us at our first summit in 2021. And welcome to our beautiful recording studio in our Amsterdam office. I hope you guys like it because I do. My name is still Kamil. I'm responsible for Group IB's business over here in Europe. And I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Dmitry.
Thanks, Kamil. Yeah, I'm Dmitry, and I'm responsible for the business development of DFB in Europe.
Great. So we have prepared a wonderful agenda for you today once again. You can basically split it into three parts. We will start with an introduction of a few schemes which we have seen very active, especially in 21, but then also moving into 22. Then we will dive into a couple more technical details related to the schemes which we have seen. I'll give you a recap of 2021, but also a forecast into what we are going to expect in 22. And then afterwards, our wonderful speakers will be talking about their experience, their use cases, which they have witnessed and experienced in their day-to-day work. So let's start with some basics. Let's start with traffic attraction, for example.
Yeah, that's should be a good idea. So if we try to put all the schemes that were revealed by our analysts over the years in a kind of huge map, and look at those in a helicopter view, this is exactly the picture that you would get. So generally, those would be consisting of three major stages. The first one would be based on a traffic of potential victims or even legitimate users, based on some informational events. So it may be a kind of a holiday, it may be something more specific, maybe something more generic, etc. The second part would be, of course, trying to run these users through a certain chain of pages, increasing their trust level to the particular scheme. And at the very end, they would be cheated, unfortunately, which may lead to losses of money, reputation, maybe identity, and so on. So in all of the cases, of course, various schemes would be looking alike to each other. However, let us try to maybe summarize a bit the major trending schemes that were revealed by the team for the 2021. Mm-hmm. And starting from the first one, it would be HR scams.
Yeah, HR scams. We saw plenty of those in the last year, especially with major enterprises who have a lot of vacancies, a lot of job offerings, mass recruitment for certain cases, but also with smaller ones, of course, as well. Those schemes work in three traditional stages. First, we have an outreach to victims, which can happen in most cases through those three steps you see on the screen. Social media advertisement, very popular, not only for this scheme, but for many others, of course, as well, talking about jobs on those advertisements. Then we have posts of job descriptions in very, very many other channels where you would usually also expect job offerings or job vacancies to be placed. And then last but not least, massive targeted emails. So the scammers will draft beautiful bodies of emails, providing job offerings, talking about vacancies, talking about possibilities, and send them out in a very massive way. All of those channels just aim and target the victims to get in touch with an HR manager, or so-called HR manager, because in fact, this is obviously a scammer. And this HR manager will then, within this conversation, try to lead one of the last three results, which you see also on the screen. Either he will ask for a lot of personal details, also copies of passports, for example, copies of ID cards, so that he can collect lots of personal information about you. And then this personal information can obviously be abused in the next stage afterwards. What they can also collect is any sort of credentials, be payment credentials, card credentials, login credentials, whatever it is, what you use in your day-to-day work. And last but not least, they can push you to make a direct payment for something. A direct payment, for example, to purchase tickets for you to fly into a job offer, a job interview, or just a payment for the facilitation of HR services, which the scammers are sort of providing to the victims. In general, we see or we saw in the period of October to December 2021 about 150 or more than 150 of such pages being created on a monthly basis. Not for the entire period, but actually month to month, we see more than 150 pages like this to be created. Another interesting scheme is the investment fund scheme. Dima, maybe you can talk about
this. Yeah, thank you for the sheet. So generally, the investment fund scheme would look the same to the previous one. So it also consists of the 3 major stages, and it also involves this severe and quite important middle part of personal interaction with a kind of a dedicated manager. However, the preparation stage is slightly different. So it includes and it, let's say, requires much more well-prepared pages, more prepared pitches to attract people shifting their savings from their personal banking accounts, their personal investment funds accounts towards the new fund. This is the first thing. And secondly, also it includes even telemarketing and even those parts of social media advertising campaigns and targeted email send-outs would be much more keen and sharp because, you know, they really need to aim at some certain type of users, certain type of victims who really do have savings on their accounts and who are willing to maybe earn more or to save more. So in all of the cases, victims would be also convinced to kind of set up a discussion with their dedicated customer support manager. While this conversation, they would be presenting an actual online platform, they would be convinced and they would be provided with evidence that this fund is reliable, is the very best, etc. So, of course, afterwards, they will be provided with the banking details, how they may transfer the money. And the major point here, as it is not just a withdrawal from a compromised card, but this is, you know, like an activity that you are conducting on your own. So you are willing to shift your money savings from your account towards somewhere else. Of course, the average loss would be much more higher, which also reflects in the total losses on the right part of the screen. So for such a scheme, just one group of scammers in Europe has stolen, unfortunately, successfully more than $36 million. The same kind of scammers in MA, also just one group, successfully has stolen 66 million USD. And what makes the situation worse is are the targets, are the victims types at which also these bad guys are aiming at. And at this moment, I'm talking about pensioners, because unfortunately in UK, for the entire year, there were like more than 10 billion of pounds stolen in exactly such a scheme. So pensioners were suggested to shift their personal savings, to shift their pension fund savings towards kind of a distant fund that will provide them with much more interest rates. And this is definitely not something that I would wish to any of our beloved grandmas and grandpas, as well as to ourselves in somehow distant future. So what is also worth mentioning that such scheme can be started not only on behalf of a very well-known banking organization or investment fund, but of course it is being started continuously on behalf of any possible reliable worldwide brand, despite the fact that these brands might not have even such like projects of conducting investment funding. But it would not stop the scammers. They're just raising up fake websites. They are setting up these, like customer managers teams, just utilizing huge brands in order to increase the level of trust of a particular victim.
Let's go into, after this, let's go into a rather hot topic. It's just a play of words. It's a very old scheme, or a scheme which was used for a very long time. So of course, internet dating scams. Although in the last 1 or 2 years during COVID, this scheme became more and more attractive as people were sitting at home. They didn't know where to date people, where to meet peers and partners. So they went onto those dating platforms where lots of scammers became more active than they were before. What you see here now on the screen is a few businesses or sites which were used by scammers to steal funds or money from their victims. So a scammer would go into a conversation with the victim on one of those dating sites and then ask for a purchase on one of those pages. For example, hey, honey, could you buy a couple of theater tickets here on the site? Look what I have found. Let's go there together. Or let's book this hotel together. Let's go to a hookah lounge or deliver sushi or whatever else it is. Then the victim would pay on those sites for a service or for a product which would never be delivered. So a very, very classic scheme. Here we estimate the losses for 2021 at about 190 million US dollars. So again, quite a lot of money. I think after people watched The Tinder Swindler, maybe it will be a little bit less. But I think he was arrested lately. Did you hear?
He was arrested for the several times, and actually this is something that I wanted to mention briefly, that the losses that were brought by that particular guy were not included into this figure.
That's what I will hope. That's what, because I think that was huge in comparison to that. But let's better go on to the next story with those COVID.
Yeah, so let's just spot an elephant in the room. And for the past, I even cannot already count how many years COVID is becoming and still being the most popular topic for scammers, of course. And here you may see some examples of fake proposals to obtain a fake vaccination certificate, a fake COVID certificate, a fake PCR test, and whatever else. Also taking into account that, of course, this activity, of purchasing of such a fake certificate is fully illegitimate, and let's say this is definitely a crime. This also stops those victims who were cheated in this way of calling to police departments and of submitting claims that they were really cheated. So that makes the entire situation of counting the losses much more difficult and sophisticated. However, I would say one important thing. That is why we have our cybercrime investigation unit in-house at Group IB, and the guys are being presented in all of the grounds. So they are presented in all of our offices of our presence. So they're actually taking care of such severe things. And this is something that is really worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the last case we had in this area was with the Italian police, with the Italian law enforcement, where we cooperated together to not just identify this kind of schemes or this kind of frauds, but also the actors behind it. So our investigations team is specialized in finding individuals, de-anonymizing them, and then work together with law enforcement towards actually arrests of such kind of criminals. And this is what we did with our Italian colleagues here. We managed to uncover a gang, uncover the individuals behind the scheme, and then Italian law enforcement was able to conduct an arrest there and make a major impact. The best impact we can make on cybercrime is to actually conduct arrests, punish people for what they have done, show that it is not just fun they are doing or a way to earn money, but actually crime, and they are harming people, and those guys, of course, deserve to be punished.
Yeah, so if I may also bring some comments at this stage, I would say that it is also definitely a kind of a topic for discussing with our speakers today. So what actual measures may be taken to leverage the awareness of what is actually a crime to just regular citizens, and whether or not it is worth placing someone into a jail for such scams, or maybe it is much more valuable to conduct a kind of educational courses and to just clearly explain people what is scamming, what is, let's say, not the best way of behavior in the internet and treating some users nearby to you. So, but let's say sum it up. These were the schemes that were the most popular over the 2021 year. And definitely you might have spotted that in all of the cases, the attack, the scam is being developed in a certain way, so in the similar way. And I would suggest to kick off with speaking on the global trends based on some actual tools and some traffic attraction that were utilized by scammers in all of these schemes. So that's why I'm really willing to shift the mic towards Anthony Dolgalov, who is our deputy head for the ERP department itself. So he will present some of our observations and projections based on the story of 2021. So Anthony, the stage is yours. You are welcome.
Good day. Thank you for joining us and joining our event. My name is Anthony Dolgalov. I'm Deputy Head of Digital Risk Protection Team here in DRP at Group IB. So I want to make a small speech today about current scam trends for 2021 and 2022. So today, internet scam is not just a small adventure for those who want to earn extra money, but a multi-billion-dollar well-established business that attacks people and brands all over the world. So every year, this industry evolves. New schemes are invented, technological tools are created, structure of scam groups is changing and evolving. Today, we will talk about trends of the scam market that we have encountered through 2021. So let's start with the statistics of global digitalization trends. In 2021, the number of internet users has increased by 9% compared to previous year and amounted to nearly 5 billion people. In addition, there is an increase, as you can see, in the number of users of social networks. In 2020, the number of social media users was around 4.2 billion people, and in 2021, this number increased by 10%, and 4.6 billion people began to use the social networks. Also, the number of mobile phone users also increased by 1.7% to 5,300,000 people. And 92% of them use mobile devices to access the internet at least sometimes. So to all of this, over the past 2 years, the share of the e-commerce market has grown also to 17.9%. So now we can consider the changes in scams and phishing. Those changes in scams and phishing rates relative to our cyber threats. In 2021, the share of phishing and scams has increased by 1% each, but this is not as small, not a small number as it might seem to be. As you can see, also 25% accounted for our high-tech cyber crimes. Over the last year, on average, the number of scam resources per brand in Middle East region, as you can see, has increased by 150%. In the European region by 89%, in APEC by 83%, and in CIS by 34%. And every year, online scams becomes more complicated and more technically improved. Attackers are improving their approach to attacks, improving the quality of scam content, and changing the structure of scam schemes and scam groups themselves. The most significant changes in the work of cyber criminal schemes and the scammers themselves and their groups can be noted in 5 big areas. And let's start with the first one. This is targeted attraction of traffic. So scammers have also become interested in relevant traffic on their resources. The quality of the traffic coming to the resource directly affects the conversion rate, and monetary profit. Previously, completely different audiences came to scam sites, and the conversion rate of these sites was much lower. Today, scammers use modern tools to attract traffic, and they lure those people who are more likely to become their victims, and they are attracting only right victims to their resources. So the conversion rate is growing significantly. Here you can see, in our schemes, how it was before. Before, an untargeted user was led to a resource with illegitimate content. He could also visit any website in the internet, and this scam website too. But now scammers understand what they are doing, and they are trying to use their money and their traffic very directly to bring real potential victims to their website. In this direction, as mentioned earlier, scammers have changed the approach to attacking. Now they have the principles of separation of duties when working with traffic and resources. Scammers are great moving to affiliate programs in which there are two great big roles. The task of the first role is to create resources and generate relevant content, so scam or phishing content. And the second role task is to attract traffic to them. So here you can see it on the scheme. These two roles are named publisher and advertiser here. This separation of duties allows scammers to focus on a specific tasks, thereby increasing the volume of scam content and the amount of money stolen, because the duties are separately being created on the different sides of this process. The principles of these affiliate programs help scammers effectively divide tasks among themselves and among their groups. So if earlier there was a trend that scammer himself independently created his own resource, he is generating content for that resource, maintaining their performance and attracting traffic. So now tasks are distributed and on every step, each scammer receives his own reward, his own money from a successful attack on the victim. So affiliate programs worked before, yes, but were not as popular as they are now and were not as organized as they are now. In recent years, we have recorded a significant increase in the use of specialized sites to attract traffic for scam purposes and phishing purposes mainly. Separately, platforms are being created for the purchase and provision of gray and illegal traffic. Recently, their number has increased by 50 or nearly 50% this year. For example, we present statistics from one of the platforms on which they sell gray and illegal traffic. So lots of scammers using this concrete platform. 87% of traffic to scam resources comes from mobile devices, as you can see. Accordingly to a sufficiently large number of people are at risk based on previous statistics of mobile device users. We also determined the average earnings of scammers per week from one offer, an offer to attract traffic to a resource. So it's just a one offer, and it amounted to more than $2,700. And this is income only from one offer, and there are a huge number of such offers on every platform and on this concrete platform, and there are hundreds and maybe thousands of that kind of platforms in the internet. So Now let's talk about the second direction in which changes in the work of scammers have been noticed. These are personal links. This scam tool has been used for a long time already, and this makes it difficult to identify and block scam content since the link will be visible only to a specific user. It will be visible only for a specific time and maybe only once, while the rest of people who are trying to click it and go through this link they will see a blank page or be redirected to legal resources, for example. However, this tool began to develop further. Scammers began to introduce the collection of analytical data for referral programs, for traffic attraction programs, which we just discussed. The use of affiliate programs has increased among scammers, as I said already, and this also increases the quality and volume of scam content. It can be noted that a change in work in one direction affects our areas of scam community, and this shows that there is a whole scam environment that reacts in a complex way to any changes. So nowadays, as you can see on the screen right now, to compare with the previous period, there are more trackers for collecting data in personal scam links. They allow scammers to evaluate the performance of traffic attraction and the platform itself, traffic attraction platform itself, and collect any analytical data from potential victims and about their activities in the internet, and also collect stole personal data from victims. For example, earlier timestamp and hash, as you can see here on the left, were highlighted in the link, but now, as you also can see on the right, geolocation, operating system version, browser like internet browser, and provider name, even internet provider name, have already been added to these personalized links. And even personal stolen data from the victim possibly could also be in these links too. So all this allows scammers to more effectively analyze traffic and to more effectively personalize the content on their resource, on their scam and phishing resources. And just the next direction we have here is personal content, which is very closely related to the previous points. Based on the collected data, scammers target and personalize their content for a specific user. This increases the conversion on the site, which directly affects the profits of cyber criminals, of scammers. Properly used technological tools allows them to concentrate relevant traffic on their resources and show directly very personal content for each and one victim. So, for example, the personalization of page content for the target user is getting better every year. Here, for example, we can see on the right that even data forms are being auto-filtered right now. With the help of those technologies which we were discussing right now, for example, personal links and traffic attraction, which is based on very targeted traffic attraction. So the personalization of page content for the target user is getting better every year. And this, of course, has a positive effect on conversion and monetary profit of scammers. Current tools for collecting and processing data about internet users allow us and allow scammers, allow everyone, like marketing specialists, to provide them with the most relevant content. And if earlier the user himself provided his data, now even forms, as I already said, here on the right you can see it now, even forms and data fields on websites could be potentially automatically filled without a user's consent. This gives cyber criminals an advantage as it increases the chance of successful attack, because now user don't even need to fill any forms. All the data which was stolen or which was collected on previous steps, for example, from targeted traffic attraction or personal link, it is now used automatically. So the fields with data are filled automatically, and the user even don't know how it is happening. He just need to click one button and confirm the scam payment or the phishing form, and his data and his personal info and his money are being stolen. So let's have a look at global changes in the organizations of in the organization process, in the organization of scam groups themselves. Initially, the scammers worked alone or in small groups. The owner of a scam resource had to perform all the stages of the scam scheme on his own. He created the resource, he was engaged in promotion campaign and directly worked with victims too. Now, the attackers have begun to work together more, grouping themselves into scam communities. They allocate areas of responsibility in which everyone has their own share of the profits. All roles are divided and each performs a specific function. For example, as it already was mentioned, traffic attractors, scam content creators, topic starters, as they named, heads of these scam groups and scam communities, workers whom are in the touch with a potential victim. So workers nowadays are provided with lots of instructions where the steps order of actions is described. There is a tendency to automate scam processes where already one person can easily, even one person nowadays can easily, with a minimum amount of knowledge and actions, carry out all scam operations and scam scheme itself. So these scam communities are growing big nowadays, and as you can see, there's a bit of statistics here. Let's take a look at them. Our experts have recorded as an increase in scam groups, and for 2021 there are more than 350 quite big and organized scam groups in the analyzed regions. Also, the number of participants, as you can see in the groups, has increased dramatically. So earlier, the number of people in each group varied from 1 to 10 people, maybe to 1 to 10 workers. Then this number has increased significantly in this period. This is due to a decrease in requirements for group members, like technical requirements, for group members involved in attracting traffic and working with victim to scam sites. So now one scam group can consist of 100 to 1,000 people. We have identified more than 38,000 unique workers from different groups using one scam scheme. So this number is large, is huge. Based on this, it is clear that it is becoming increasingly difficult to track various kind of scam activities, because lots of people are working in these scam groups. So internet users need to be more and more careful every day, visiting internet websites or communicating with like anyone in the internet. Yes, so the level of social engineering usage for scam purposes has become a real problem in recent years. We are now seeing that the general trend of scammers is to use the social engineering tool more thoughtfully, and we are quite surprised that social engineering is again becoming popular like it was, for example, 10 years ago. We were not predicting that the social engineering will grow again, because we were pretty sure that the digitalization and the technologies, evolved technologies will bring a lot of automatization, will bring a lot of tools, and people like workers like that part of social engineering process will not be very useful. But we were not right, and attackers began to pay more attention to the design of scam schemes on their resources, and not only the design of the website, but the design of the process. They tried to mimic the brand or person as much as possible, detailing their scam resources and using modern technologies of scam tools. They finding an individual approach to each and one victim. So social engineering helps with this. For this, they use data collection, data from database leaks, special instructions, as I mentioned earlier, for communicating with victims. They do use all that personal data, all that data stolen or collected via personal links, and they use all this information to communicate with final victim, to communicate with potential victim, to increase the conversion rate of their scam scheme. So all this data is being analyzed and applied to provide the most relevant content and provide a personalized approach to victims. As noted earlier, social engineering scams here have become more sophisticated. It is worth nothing that in 2021, 48% of scam schemes began with a personal dialogue with the victim. The success of a scam attack in most cases depends on the level of involvement of the victim in participating in the scam scheme. So during the dialogue with the victim, attackers can additionally use psychological techniques. They can use all that personal data, which we were discussing earlier, and a victim often victim is being quite shocked because he don't understand from where all this information came from. So how that person from the internet, the random person from the internet, how could it possibly be that he knows anything about me, or maybe everything sometimes. So success of scam attack nowadays is very, very related to the social engineering, related to the amounts of data collected or stolen on previous steps. So now let's pay attention to the last step, the last piece of puzzle in this big logic. Let's pay attention to the use of legal services in scam schemes. For a long time, scammers created separate sites to deceive users and incurred a lot of costs. Creating a resource its distribution among users, as well as regular domain changes as sites were quickly blocked, domain names were quickly suspended because they were always consonant and they were quite easy to track, to detect by special companies. For example, our digital risk protection product. It's required for scammers a lot of money and lots of time. So in this regard, scammers began to use legal services more for unscrupulous purposes, which gave them some advantages. Thanks to this approach, it has become easier and more efficient for scammers to set up advertising campaigns for their resources. Previously, this required a lot of time and resources. Launching advertising campaigns is simple, while flexible and deep settings functionality based on the data of users of this service, for example, social network, allows scammers to attract the most relevant traffic. There are many instructions to help to bypass moderation on legal services than running advertising campaigns. Also, it is very easy to understand why scammers use popular platforms because it is increasing the rate of the conversion rate of their scam schemes located or hosted on those popular platforms, like, for example, Blogspot, or, for example, big platforms for creating their own sites or social networks, as we all know them. So also scammers have become more likely to use legal services to post scam content, as it is easier and faster. If earlier it was necessary to be well-versed in programming, set up the site, control its work on your own, now with the help of legal services, it is not necessary anymore. Because creating a site will not be a problem even for a beginner, even for a kid. So what we were talking about, the grown-up scammers who are in this business for years maybe. So moreover, it requires less time, less resources. It is very easy, and the rate of these sites are very trustful. The trusted rate of well-known domain names, well-known social networks is very high. So the victim is more likely to trust those websites, even if they are a scam or a phishing one. So in 2021, half of all violations accounted for legal services. And these are instant messengers, social networks, blogs, website builders. The main reason for moving to this approach, the main reasons are, first of all, increased trust in legitimate services among users and between legitimate services. This helps attackers drive traffic to scam content from one legal resource to another, bypassing warnings about scam activity. Secondly, insufficient moderation of services allows scammers to create a huge amount of scam content in legitimate services. We do know and we do understand how hard it is to moderate such big platforms, for example, as Facebook or Twitter or big social networks, right? And how it is not easy to moderate, for example, special platforms for creating our own websites, for example, Blogspot or Wix, because it is very hard. It's very expensive for platforms to moderate all content by passing through it. Of course, they are trying, they are somehow doing that, but of course, we do think that it is not, it's not enough. And nowadays, when we are trying to communicate with those platforms and trying to create a special, like, we want to work together with those platforms to help each other, so we can detect scam and phishing, and we can detect potential cyber criminals websites and their pages, and we can cooperate for this moderation process with those big like social networks and platforms. We think that this is very good answer for that moderation problem, which is of course now presented. And the third point, like a third reason for moving to legal platforms, is storing scam content on a legitimate service inside another legitimate service makes it difficult to block scam content, because those platforms are not, they are never being blocked, like full platform is never being blocked, because if it is a social network or it is a site construction platform, for example, the only way to cooperate and to suspend the suspicious web page is to cooperate with the moderation team of that platform. It couldn't be done by hosting provider, it couldn't be done by domain name registrator. So the typical internet regulation here is not working. Yeah, that's very important reason why scammers are moving forward and increasing their presence on the legal services and on these platforms. We see two examples. Here you can see two examples of using legitimate services to conduct scam attacks. In the first example, advertising on a legal resource is used to drive traffic to a scam page. This is very old good scheme, and it was used very often for many years right now. On the second, like on the right, you can see the storage of the scam or phishing content on legal services itself. And as you can see, it is very easy to create those pages. They are quite simple, and they are being created by hundreds and thousands of copies of these pages every day, and on lots of legal platforms. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining our Digital Risk Summit, and have a great and productive day. And don't forget that scam is everywhere, and you need to understand what are you doing in the internet, and we need to protect users from the internet scam and phishing.
Thanks for the recap, Anthony.
Yes, Anthony, thanks a lot. And here we have to admit that we made a false forecast in the last year. We were assuming that all those low sophisticated or unsophisticated fraudsters and scammers will be replaced with automation of any sort of bots or other ways to automate their job. Well, it didn't happen. In the same way, like maybe less sophisticated salespeople are still existing because the human touch is so important. I mean, that's also why all those less sophisticated scammers are still out there because they are providing this very easy and cheap human touch.
Yeah, so just abandon sirens, save the sales jobs. So this is definitely the catch, and that was our point of view. That was the picture that we've seen with our own eyes. So let's proceed to our next speaker, who will also provide us with a global view, global picture, maybe from a bit another side. And this is Yuri Abraham, who is the General Manager for Anti-Scam Alliance and Scam Advisor. And Yuri will touch the base of the global state of scams. So Yuri, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. My name is George Abraham. I am the General Manager of the Global Anti-Scam Alliance and of scamadvisor.com. Our mission is very simple. We want to help consumers not get scammed. And we do that with two entities. One is the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, which is a non-profit organization where we bring together law enforcement, consumer authorities, brand protection, cybersecurity companies to share knowledge and insights around scams. And our consumer brand is scamadvisor.com. And scamadvisor.com is a website where consumers can check if a website is legit or might be a scam. And at the moment, we have more than 130,000 consumers every day checking if a website is a scam or legit. And we add about 1 million domains to our database. But more importantly, we share our data as much as possible to fight scammers. And we're very happy that we also share knowledge and insights with Group IB to fight scammers globally. Scam Advisor was actually set up in 2012. The original founder, Mark, bought a golf set online, and he discovered it's a fake. And as many of you know, nothing is as dangerous as an angry developer. So he started to develop an algorithm to determine what's the likelihood of this website being legit or a scam. And that turned into scamadvisor.com. And on Scamadvisor, any consumer can type in a website and immediately see what's the likelihood of this website being legit or a scam. And we also explain why. So it might be the age of the website, lacking an SSL certificate, but also it has been reported to us by one of our partners in law enforcement, consumer protection, or cybersecurity. So taking one step back, I've been asked by Group IB to present about scams. And what we clearly see is that scams are a clear part, a big part of cybercrime. Of course, you have the big cyber crimes with DDoS attacks and extortion, focusing mainly on companies. But we actually see that online scams and fraud are very much related to them. The same infrastructure is used, the same tricks are used for convincing people to make investments or to buy from an online store selling fakes, for phishing, etc. Of course, some scams are very obvious. You would be amazed how often we get the question about this website: is this really legit? Can I earn money? And I have to admit, most of the questions we get from men, and I'm sorry to say, no, it's not real, it's not legit, and you don't earn money. And in some instances, of course, victims could have known. If you are buying guns online or verified PayPal accounts or your visas or your driver's license, the chances that it's a scam are very high. And the scammer knows, because the scammer knows you will never go to the police and say, hey, I tried to buy an Uzi online and it was never delivered, or I ordered a driver's license online and I never got it. But sometimes scammers are much more malicious. What we've seen last year is when Texas introduced this new legislation, making it impossible to buy abortion pills. Already 3 months before, scammers were starting to create online stores offering abortion medication. and not only not delivering it to the persons who ordered it, but actually extorting mainly young women, saying that, hey, you ordered from us. If you don't want us to tell your parents or your family, you also have to pay money. So really a vicious kind of crime. Scammers are also very entrepreneurial. Most of you are familiar with the Squid Game Netflix series. It was very popular. And within a few days after it became very popular, scammers introduced a investment website stating that they were going to launch a game and you could already buy crypto squid coins for it. And within 5 days, they were able to get $3.4 million from people who bought the coin, and then they disappeared. But in 5 days, it was possible for them to really get a lot of money without being apprehended. And we see that a lot more, that scammers are really becoming more and more professional. It's not only the simple scams where you receive an email with congratulations, you won $1 billion. You just have to send us your passport and your bank account information, and we will transfer the money to you. Those scams are still working, but they're mostly targeted at different people. And we see that also highly educated people are getting as much scammed as people with a low education level, but the scams differ. They are called pig butchering scams, where the victim is being contacted by a person. Sometimes it seems really to be by chance, and they for 3 or 6 months try to build up a relationship of trust, sometimes romantic, sometimes just friendship. And then suddenly the question comes that, hey, I would like to fly to you, or I had a car accident. Can you please help me with the medical bill, or I'm being kidnapped. Can you send money? And it works. Any kind of person can be scammed. It's just the right scam for the right person. We did a survey amongst 5,000 consumers, and what we noticed is that consumers are actually pretty convinced that they can identify scams. 76% of the consumers think they can see this is a scam, yes or no. The problem is that 73% of these people actually also admit that they fell for a scam. So they lost money or they lost personal details. So there's a big gap between the level of trust they have in themselves for not being scammed and the reality of being scammed. What we also see is that scammers, as I said before, are really rapidly professionalizing. It's no longer a 16-year-old kid setting up a web shop and forgetting to deliver the products. We see that scams are increasingly personalized using our social media data, fully automated emails using the names of our friends and family to gain more trust. We see that scams are more localized and translated. We are in contact with the Finnish law enforcement, and they stated that until a few years ago, they didn't have so much problems with with phishing because the Finnish language is very, very difficult. Now they see perfectly translated Finnish scams targeting Finnish people. And we see that scams are more targeted toward elderly with investment scams, but also Roblox scams focused on young kids. They also do all kinds of tricks. So, for example, we have come across the website called the International Financial Market Relations Regulation Center, which certifies financial cryptocurrency websites. And what we found remarkable is that all 50 companies certified by them, we find very dubious, offering huge returns on investments and have all the characteristics of actually being scams. So they set up a separate website which gives the consumer the idea that the websites are actually certified, but we don't know by whom or which authority. We see also more and more chargeback sites where consumers are being tricked to give their credit card details because they saw that money is being charged to their credit card. They want to stop that. But actually, these websites are ways for the scammer to delay chargebacks to the payment service provider and they just continue using a different name, continue charging the same credit card over and over again. In some cases, it's really hard. We came across the Financial Control Service, which seems to be a website from Grenada, and they contact people saying that, hey, you were scammed by this cryptocurrency website. We were able to get your money back. Can you please send us your financial details? And we have a very, very, very strong suspicion that this is actually a scam. But the website is very professional. It looks like a government website. It has all kinds of financial plans and statements there. But the government of Grenada could not confirm that this is actually part of their offering. And that's one of the biggest challenges we see nowadays, that 80% of the scammers we are trying to identify have set up a formal company, especially in the United Kingdom. For £12, you can set up a new company, and it looks completely legit with an address in London, a phone number in London. Just it's registered by somebody from a completely different country without any real know your customer processes. We see also more and more cases where victims are actually opening a bank account or setting up a credit card without them knowing. They think they actually subscribe to a lottery. Well, they are real-time entering their information. That information is actually being used to set up a bank account or apply for a credit card. They see something completely else, but their data is real-time passed along, including the facial recognition, to a bank or credit card. And that credit card or bank number is then used by the scammer to launder money. We see the same thing with romantic dating scammers. They are using, for example, there's an online website where you can create a face which does not exist. And here you see some examples. The only thing which helps us identify that these are actually not real faces is that the eyes are always centered on the exact same place. But the faces really look very, very legit, but they're not existing persons. And this, of course, goes to continue to the Queen of England. And this is also a deep fake. And we expect that more and more scammers will start to use this technology to convince people to send money to their son or daughter, but it's not really their son or daughter. So one of the studies we do every year is to determine how big online scams are. And every year we research about 42 countries to see how much money is lost, how many people are actually scammed, and what are countries doing to fight scams. So last year, nearly $50 billion was lost in scams, according to the different countries, up with 15% compared to the year before. And very honestly, we think that the reporting is still very sketchy because only between 3 and 15%, depending on the country, actually report the scams. However, the number of scams grew phenomenally, and that's mainly because due to Corona, we saw a huge increase in the number of scams reported in developing countries like Egypt, Nigeria, India. Here, people were online for the first time, and they were easy victims for scammers. We see also that countries are becoming more creative in fighting scams. So in Ireland, the police now every week reports a new type of scams to the media, and the media picks this up because it's always interesting and it's new. But it allows the people in Ireland to continuously get a reminder that their scammers are out there and they're using new tricks. We also see, for example, in Japan, that a municipality has started paying potential victims of scams to apprehend the scammer together with the victim. And they're paying only, it's a small amount, 70 euros, but they're paying the victim to help actually catch the scammer. Still, in our view, the scammers are winning. And the reason is simple. One, the online market is booming, it's growing very fast, and every day 100,000 new people join the internet with very little experience of how scammers operate. Two is that we see that the costs of setting up a scam are marginal. For $70, you have a website which looks like a expensive investment banker website, very easy to set up, or you have a wallet exchange. It's only 70 euros and you have a professional looking site. And finally, according to the World Economic Forum, only 0.05% of all the cyber criminals are being caught. In other words, it's a very lucrative market with low investment costs and zero chance of getting caught. What we're trying to achieve together with the Global Anti-Scam Alliance and Scam Advisor is that we share our data across all the countries. Because only in that way, it's much easier to identify scammers who operate always globally, often across 80 countries with hundreds of different websites. And by sharing knowledge on domain names, email addresses, phone numbers, and cryptocurrency addresses, we hope to expose scammers faster and support law enforcement in apprehending the scammers quicker and easier. We hope you will join our network of brands and law enforcement and cybersecurity companies like Group IB to share data so that we can both make the world a safer place together. And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation and give back to the chairperson. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Yuri. I've definitely learned a lot from your study.
Yeah, Yuri, it's always amazing to listen to your studies, and we are always learning so much from you. Well, just like after the last presentation, it turns out that human interaction is still extremely important and cannot just be replaced. However, we still might see in the nearest future more involvement from deepfakes, who can replace this human interaction or fake the human interaction. Maybe that's my fault. We'll need to have a second factor on human interaction. When I call you and you tell me, Kamil, I don't believe it's you, put in your second factor, answer your secret question. Could happen.
Yeah, so as the Skynet is already knocking our doors, I suppose that we really should note and apparently state this idea as a kind of projection to the further development of cybersecurity vendors.
If someone steals my idea now,
you should patent it. Yeah, definitely. So if you might have spotted, Scam Advisor also revealed a spike in the amount of scams happening in the Middle East and Africa region. So it would be really beneficial to have a kind of a local insight from a real professional, Amr Bahagat, who is the head of cybersecurity at eBank Egypt.
Yes, it's so good to have Amr here with us, and we are already waiting for his report or for his feedback from the Middle East and Africa. So Amr, without further ado, the mic is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is Amr Bahgat. I'm working for Export Bank of Egypt as head of cybersecurity. I will talk about a part of how digital transformation do impact cybersecurity program. As you know, threat actors always target the weakest link in any security chain, where the weakest link is the link that mostly lacks visibility and control. Threat actors always target the weakest link in the security chain. With digital transformation, our organizations have a continuous and non-stopping increase of its level of presence on the internet. Whether you like it or not, this presence comes up with a growing presence of cyber threats as well. So the better we are prepared and understand the presence, the better we are prepared for cyber threats. Unfortunately, with traditional on-prem cybersecurity controls like next generation firewall, IPSs, sandbox, etc., cannot provide visibility on what's going on the wide web, nor control or defend you defend your digital presence. As well, we don't have the long arm control to identify and mitigate digital identity risks on the internet. A growing part of our cybersecurity capabilities and a solid part of any organization's cybersecurity posture is about how we are proactively aware and up to date with threat landscape and threat actors targeting directly our organization, or even our business sector or country and region. and staying ahead of them by being well prepared and aware with related IOCs and vulnerabilities. Actually, having a good visibility of the threat landscape on the internet and dark web through a threat intelligence platform and a vendor with proper high-tech technologies and experience is no more a good to have control, but it's a must. In Egypt here, the central bank has newly issued a very comprehensive cybersecurity framework that clearly states the importance of the threat intelligence and its significance and crucial. Other forms of digital risks associated with digital transformation are risks that targets our organization's intellectual property and brand that may impact not only our organization reputation, but also our customers. According to Google's transparency report, more than 46,000 new phishing websites is created every week, and more than 2 million every year. And an average of 50 fraudulent account, up to 50 fraudulent account and fake posts are created every day for a single brand. A common simple use cases I frequently faces during my career is about HR team complaining from heavy traffic of candidates that are approaching the bank for HR opportunities that do not exist. Where the reason behind it is fake posts and pages posting fake opportunities. Having a digital identity protection vendor make it very easily to take down similar cases on a timely manner. Actually, I would like to add some few points to be considered when contracting a digital identity protection vendor. The first thing is number of takedowns. Where the more takedowns the vendor offers, the more you can rest assured of responding to all existing and potential scams. Another point is the time to respond. How rapidly does the vendor respond to any misuse of your brand? A very important point to consider is the details, where details always matters. It's very important not to only know about a threat like phishing website, but also a comprehensive details of threat actor and threat source. One of the samples of how details matters, I found a fake website that looked exactly like my organization's website. Before taking the steps to take it down, it was very important to know the details about the potential threat actor and the motivation of this potential threat. When I got all details, I found it was a local IT company that my organization was not dealing with. I was able to get all details about the developer himself who uploaded the website, correlated with his contact info and LinkedIn profile. So I was able to get a 360 view on these threat details. Luckily, on the same day of the incident, I had a meeting with the business to assess a new website vendor, where I found the developer of the fake website, who I already had got all his details, is sitting in the same meeting, where the company developed the site without the pre-approval of the bank, as a proof of concept, so they can have the deal. Finally, threat intelligence and identity protection are considered two of the most important components of a sufficient cybersecurity program for protecting your digital presence, consequently protecting your data, customer, and reputation. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Amr, for your input. So if I may say, I would like to conclude that even though guys and ladies from marketing, PR, and legals also have their own budgets and have definitely their own plans on the development of some maybe digital assets, please kindly keep informed your cybersecurity teams. This is definitely something that they should be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. I can say that we had a similar case in Europe lately, where we saw that for one of our customers, someone was setting up also landing pages, hiring landing pages, and was promoting them via Facebook. Everything looked like a scam. It looked 100% fake. We saw how the domains were created. We saw iframes on the pages and so on and so on. Everything looked like fake. And then when the customer started to make an internal investigation about this case, it turned out that a third-party supplier was hired for exactly those HR purposes, but no one of the security department was informed. That's why we also didn't know about it. We saw that it looked like a scam. The security department thought so. And all of it just because digital assets were not taken care of correctly.
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely really a real pleasure to have a discussion about scams and cybersecurity with someone from the banking industry. However, let's try to change the track, to change the lead, and talk to Bojan Simitic, who is the head of cyber threat intelligence of United Nations International Computing Center. So, to be honest, UNICC is the organization who is managing some parts of cybersecurity for the United Nations parties, which is in turn means that they have also a global coverage, and they are acting on behalf of those parties who are actually non-financial. So, Bojan, the floor is yours, and we are impatiently looking to your presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bojan Simitic. I'm head of threat intelligence at United Nations International Computing Center, greatest cybersecurity workforce within the UN. We have been providing cybersecurity services to the UN family for past almost 6 years, where I've been leading threat intelligence, shared threat intelligence program called Common Secure. First, to say something about UNICC. It is a non-for-profit cost recovery organization which cannot actually go outside on the market, but is serving only UN and UN partnering organizations which are aligned with Secretary General's sustainment development goals. Common Secure program as a shared threat intelligence program within UN family started some 5 years ago with the two initial subscribing organizations, being the International Atomic Energy Agency and Pan American Health Organization. As of now, there are 32 participating organizations in this program, seeing benefits from it. Maybe not the best, but the most relevant threat intelligence service for us. In this sense, we are getting great help from Group IB, with whom we recently partnered, where we are leveraging primarily digital risk and brand protection features to improve our internal security posture and also to increase trust over our organizations. So I will be briefly speaking of what type of scams we are seeing. Those are, from our perspective, those are mostly traditional business email compromise scams, where either UN partnering organizations are targeted with scams, or their name was just misused in order to induce other people to perform rogue payments. And the most prevalent type of abuse are HR scams. Many people would like to work for the UN due to its noble goals, and that makes them actually vulnerable and susceptible to these type of frauds, which unfortunately thieves have no honor, and they keep abusing that as well. When we are speaking of sophistication of tools in these scams that we are facing, I'm afraid that I cannot really say that we can see some specific sophistication, because they are led by thoughts, but just enough. And in this case, in cases that are interesting to us, I would say social engineering is the most prevalent one, still most prevalent one. So basically, threat actors are using and abusing social networks for the most of these frauds. Now I'm going to speak a bit of different, more relevant scams regarding UN, where we are actually leveraging brand protection services. First one is protection of our beneficiaries. But how? Many UN agencies don't have actually a big footprint in social media. However, that does not prevent threat actors to abuse that fact. One clear example is one organization mechanism, which is dedicated to collection of evidence, which can be possibly used in war crimes processings. And they don't have any official accounts on social media or anything as such. However, beneficiaries who are expected to submit their all kinds of evidence at their disposal that can be used in some future trials. They believe that they actually speak with proper, competent entity within the UN, which is not the case. That exposes them greatly to some dangers, even to endangering their lives. Eventually resulting in a loss of trust, because then these people or their families will be speaking that they were speaking to UN competent authority, and then they suffered because of that, while in reality they were not speaking to the UN competent authority for that. Another stream of where brand protection can be used, and where we are using it in this sense, is analysis of social media as a point of intrusion. Why? Basically, when threat actors are doing preliminary reconnaissance regarding attacks for intrusions, they target people, they don't target assets. What does it mean? They keep building their knowledge over infrastructure, over organization and organigram of organizations regarding titles and relations between different teams, and then they start targeting specific individuals within those teams, primarily over social networks. Why is this important? Because while many of our assets are under security controls, monitored, many people actually bring their own devices, including mobile devices, which are not included in mobile device management solutions. And then they compromise those assets, and then they use them as a jump-off stations for launching further attacks within the organization, which also can be abused. This approach can be abused, can be used for abuse of even zero trust in place when combined with poor user awareness. Just one example is when users keep accepting, for instance, They keep accepting 2FA challenges on their mobile devices which are not controlled. If bad actors are owning this device in terms of that they have a footprint and presence on it, they can even do a 2FA challenge by themselves. And finally, third use case that where we are seeing a great use of brand protection is a monitoring of social media for internal abuse. What does it mean? Basically, we have seen many times that our employees, for various reasons, they tend to pretend that they are what they are not. One small example, one employee who was working in architecture team was presenting himself as enterprise architect, which is C-level function. Reason for that was to kind of attract recruiters so that he can get exposed to this type of functions or vacancies. And then he started making certain comments which were then taken as official comment of the organization, which was not the case. And then that organization suffered some reputational damage at some extent for that. That the specific case was investigated internally and by the organization, and it got disciplinary resolution from that perspective. So basically, these would be main three streams where we are using brand protection. Of course, there are many others. Just to mention phishing detection or abuse of applications in mobile stores, something like that.
Thank you very much, Bojan. Always a pleasure to have you with us and to listen to your cases. I assume that now, after your presentation, we have once again proved how important it is to take care for your digital assets and the hygiene of your digital assets, even if you are not necessarily a financial institution, even if you not necessarily have big exposure on social media and in the digital. Yeah, as soon as you can be abused, your brand can be abused. It can happen even if you are not represented yet.
Yeah, I agree. So, and now we're smoothly coming to the end of our second part. So all the speakers have shared their observations and have conducted their knowledge sharing sessions. So let's now move on to the Q&A sessions. So I will explain you briefly what did we do. We provide them with a bunch of questions, including some, like questions about the major factors, the major things that happened in the past year, and also asked kindly to share their observations for the next one. So let's see what our speakers think about the past and about the future.
Okay, the first one is for you, Yuri. So while we are talking now about legitimate services and platforms which are used for scam purposes, I wanted to ask you what kind of services you see very popular in your region or in your industry. What can you tell us about that?
We cover the entire world with Scam Advisor, and what we see is that the most reported platform where scams are starting is Facebook, and followed very closely by Google. And for Telegram, we see especially cryptocurrency scammers using that medium a lot. But very honestly, Facebook is really making a mess of it. We see every day hundreds of new advertisements on Facebook promoting obvious scams, and Facebook, even when we report them to them, there's nothing happening. And if we then discuss the scam on Facebook, it's more often that we get banned than Facebook is then the advertiser is scammed. So my biggest frustration at the moment is with Facebook.
And now also kind of more general question to all of the speakers. So what would you evaluate as a top priority threat for your regions and industries? Maybe you may mention what calls to action were used by scammers for users and victims attraction. Maybe any new trends that you discovered recently?
UNICC is operating in certain regions. However, UNICC users, partnering organizations are operating globally, while some of them are focused also on regional efforts. Others may actually act globally. So from that perspective, it's really difficult to speak. What I can tell you is that different regions have different challenges. For instance, what we have been seeing regarding Middle East is the mostly humanitarian work themed schemes, while, for instance, for Southeast Asia, those schemes are mostly related to development programs. When it comes to main CTAs for attraction, to attract users to fall in, we definitely would say from UN perspective, that would be senior officials impersonations. We saw great increase in these, and we are trying to tackle those as much as possible.
As you know, a threat landscape is somehow changing. Threat actors are more focusing on customers and end users through phishing campaigns. So we should extend our visibility and control as much as possible to detect phishing websites, for example, and to be able to analyze user behavior and detect and block malicious activities.
So now that we see, on the one hand, very sophisticated and technically intense scams, which are using technologies, which are using more sophisticated methods. And on the other side, we see scammers which are less extensive, which rely on mass distribution and on very simple scams. What do you think? Which of the two of them is the bigger problem for you, for your organizations, for your countries, and which less, and why?
Or maybe you would like to emphasize that both of them are quite important.
Maybe even both of them.
I'm not going to give you an answer you want, because I think both are very important. We need to fight the scammers who are using infrastructure in a big way, doing a lot of harm, or maybe on a national level. Very important. But we do need to protect consumers as well. And the fact that somebody loses maybe 50 euros, well, on the other hand, a company is being extorted for 50 million euros, it doesn't matter. The harm is being done, and we have to protect companies from the big scams. But now that 40% of all crime reported to police are related to cybercrime, we do need to protect consumers as much as we need to protect big companies. Because in the end, it's about the trust of the digital economy. And if we cannot protect it, then it will really harm us and the global economy very strongly in the future.
If we divide scammers into two groups, first one being highly skilled and well technically educated, and second one being low-skilled scammers who stick with simple scams, I'm not sure how we can actually divide them because they are always intertwining between each other. Why? Because highly skilled scammers are actually frequently service providers to low-skilled scammers. So while low-skilled scammers can be easily pursued, question is due to massive numbers of low-skilled scammers. Question is if it's sustainable to pursue all of them. Instead of that, in my opinion, now I'm speaking with former law enforcement hats. Focus should be on their service providers and facilitators. Either we are speaking of infrastructure being provided to them, or services they need to operate. In that sense, impact can be significantly bigger. Nevertheless, if I have to choose between these two, I would definitely go for low-skilled scammers. Why? Highly skilled scammers, their impact can be tremendous, and many organizations have a variety of security controls and tools in place to tackle these efforts. However, none of organizations have anything regarding low-skilled scammers, but partially information security awareness programs, which are frequently not really tailored in that direction. So I would say, in that sense, low-skilled scammers, because they are consuming, after all, they are like parasite who is consuming a lot of your energy and time for whack-a-mole effect.
Actually, it's a good question. Look, I think we have to be focusing on both groups, because the sophisticated groups have their own. They are focusing on part of the users who are well educated and matured. On the other side, they also focus on the users that are not matured, and they can easily get tripped in a phishing campaign, even if it's a basic one.
So as we all very well aware, such severe crimes like malware injections or phishing are very well described and determined in lots of laws worldwide. And also there are lots of, let's say, intentions to self-regulate in preparation of combating these threats. However, when we're talking about less maybe severe scams or less known scams, it is always a kind of a gray part of regulation. So what do you think would be valuable for decreasing, for combating those scams completely around the globe? So maybe some more associations or local initiatives based on their self-regulation are needed, or maybe it would be worth really making the local laws or global laws much more strict. And of course, the third idea would be increasing of the awareness of, let's say, just regular citizens, explaining them how these schemes are working. So what is the game changer in your opinion?
I'm a big fan of freedom of speech and keeping the internet as much as possible a free platform. Unfortunately, for cybercrime, that's not working. In the last years that I've worked with law enforcement worldwide, we are 10 steps behind the cybercriminals. The cybercriminals operate globally. Well, law enforcement is mainly nationally, of course, and Europol and Interpol don't have the authority, the tools, the resources yet to fight back. So although I don't like regulation, I think the only way to win this war against cybercrime is by international legislation, where we really give more authority to organizations like Interpol and Europol to act, and also create more rules for providers of infrastructure. And providers of infrastructures can be hosting companies, companies like Facebook, but also SSL providers. I mean, We've spoken to several SSL providers who give scammers their products and stating that, hey, you're supporting clearly phishing sites. And the answer was, we don't care. As long as there's no legislation forbidding us or making us more responsible, we don't feel that we're like the internet police. We're not responsible. We just want to sell as many as possible to as many with the lowest cost. So I'm unfortunately a big fan of more regulation.
When it comes to regulation or self-regulation of internet, self-regulation is utopistic, sounds nice, but it's highly unlikely that it can be achieved due to various differences, cultural, many others. So what I truly believe is that the combination of both regulators to provide framework, which then can allow flexibility to expand the pre-trial response. Why is this important? Because this can expedite reaction. If everything is purely regulated, then bad actors can actually, they are much faster than we are, than regulators are. Sometimes it takes ages for new regulations to be adopted, and then threat actors, they just keep moving forward, hunting for blind spots, let's put it this way. Now, a combination of both would be ideal. Actually, there is one ongoing initiative within the UN regarding this. This initiative is ad hoc committee to elaborate a comprehensive international convention on countering the use of information and communications technologies for criminal purposes. And it also treats previously discussed highly skilled scammers and low-skilled scammers with their low schemes, which are still from the area of criminal offenses.
Okay, guys, and now let's go to forecasting for the next 1-2 years. What would you predict in our field of scamming will happen in the next 1-2 years? And then also, what should cybersecurity vendors actually focus on to effectively resist those scammers? I came up with my idea already with the second factor for human interaction, but what do you guys think?
During last period, most of organizations were focusing on protecting their own infrastructure, securing their data, while scammers and threat actors are now targeting more customers and end users. So yeah, I think the coming year we will be more focusing on extending our visibility and control, trying to protect customers as well, by investing more in anti-fraud systems, identity protection, and threat intelligence solutions.
When it comes to predictions for the next 1 to 2 years, and what should cybersecurity vendors focus on to effectively resist scammers, I actually believe that cybersecurity vendors are already providing tools for effective resistance or effective decrease of scams. But what is missing is liability of end users, organizations who are supposed to be using these tools. Why? Because even though one organization does not have a significant digital footprint over the internet or in social media or wherever, they still should be liable for that, and because they are ones who can compare what is legitimate and what is not legitimate, and then they are mandated for taking down those assets.
I think the challenges for cybersecurity vendors will be that scammers are incredible entrepreneurial. They always know how to, if there's another crisis like we see now, they pick up within a day and they start to develop scams around it. And the only way to identify those new scams quickly is by one, sharing more data across cybersecurity companies to make our offerings more robust. And the second one is that we have to always look at new media. We see now TikTok very popular, scams. The deep fakes are really starting to be used. So we need to be as entrepreneurial as scammers are in order to win the war.
And so now, when we've even passed through the Q&A session, and many thanks to our awesome speakers again for sharing their also observations for the upcoming years, we are coming up to a conclusion. So this is actually the end of our conference. And what I've learned out of dozens of schemes and tools we've talked about today is that still this personal touch, this, like involvement of low sophisticated, low skilled scammers into different schemes is still really high, and it is increasing dramatically, as well as the presence of different scams being promoted within legitimate platforms. Which for me means that apparently this is the right time to start a straight and open dialogue with those legitimate platforms, and maybe to help them dealing with these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I hope that we are helping you also to deal with those issues, that you could get a lot of information out of this summit, information which will help you to make your decisions for your companies. If you need more help, if you would like, for example, to do a digital checkup or check on your VIPs, you can request this for us, and for you guys here on the call, we can do this with a 40% discount. Other than that, I would say see you next year at our Summit 2023, or on any kind of other webinars or events in the time between that. Always happy to talk to you guys. Reach out if you need something.
Thank you so much for being here today with us. Thank you for your time. We wish you to stay safe, and in case of any need, just give us a call.
Okay. See you.
See you. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Thank you.